Welcome to 2400 Problems of Philosophy. My name's Alex Byrne, your instructor, and this is the introductory lecture. By now you should have found your way to the class website on Canvas, and on the website there is a prominent link to the syllabus, which you should read carefully. Let us look at a few highlights. This course is a general introduction to philosophy. We'll be covering many topics that philosophers talk about, in some cases topics that they've been talking about for more than a couple of thousand years. The course has two goals. The first goal is just to introduce you to the wonderful discipline of philosophy. It really is wonderful, take it from me. And the second goal is to turn you into a philosopher, to get you thinking philosophically yourself. And with a bit of luck, at the end of the term, you'll have come to some firm opinions about at least some of the perennial philosophical problems that we'll be talking about in this class. The readings will be taken almost exclusively from this very fine volume, a doorstopper of a book, if ever there was one, the Norton Introduction to Philosophy, 2nd edition, edited by Gideon Rosen, who's a philosopher at Princeton, me, Josh Cohen, who's a philosopher at Apple University. Believe it or not, there really is such a university as Apple University. Liz Harman, who used to be a grad student at Princeton and now used to be a grad student at MIT and now teaches at Princeton. And last but by no means least, Shauna Schifrin, who's a philosopher at UCLA. The editors labored long and hard to produce lots of editorial apparatus designed to help you, the student. Here's some of it. We each wrote a little essay on philosophy, why we think it's a good thing, what we think it is. Those are amusing. You don't have to read them, but they were fun to write. What you should read, though, is the Brief Guide to Logic and Argumentation. I'll be referring to that throughout the course. And your philosophical activities throughout the term will consist of talking about philosophy in your hour-long weekly recitation sections, and also I hope talking about philosophy with me. I'll be Zoomable at many times throughout the week, and writing about philosophy. There are 4 papers you'll have to write throughout the term. So we've included some guidelines for writing philosophy papers. You should look at those when paper 1 comes around. As far as the reading goes, here's the first reading from Anselm of Canterbury called The Ontological Argument. Just who Anselm was and what the word ontological means is something that I'll explain later. After each reading, there's a Test Your Understanding section, which is precisely designed to test your understanding. This is the only time when answers to philosophical questions are found at the end of the book. Here they really are found at the end of the book. So after you've done the Test Your Understanding questions, which you should do when you've completed every reading, turn to the back of the book, see what you got right. Do not worry in the slightest if you got things wrong. Many of the readings are very difficult, and they repay close study. In some cases, they need to be read 3, 4, maybe even 5 times in order to properly understand what's going on. For some of the more difficult readings, and the selection from Anselm is an example, we've included a reader's guide to help you grapple more effectively with the material. After each reading, there's yet another section called Notes and Questions, which goes into the reading in more depth. And at the end of every chapter, here's the first chapter in the book, Does God Exist? In the end of every chapter, there's a section called Analyzing the Arguments, which brings the readings in the chapter into conversation with each other and raises more problems and issues. And I'll be referring to some of those analyzing the arguments sections throughout the course. So that's analyzing the arguments. That's all. We're nearly done with the book. Philosophy, like any discipline, has its own special vocabulary, its own jargon. So don't forget the glossary to be found at the end of the Norton Anthology. Here's the first entry. A posteriori. We'll be using that piece of jargon sooner or later. Whenever you see a word or phrase in the book that's in boldface, that's a sign that there's a corresponding glossary entry for it. This is a communication intensive class, so there will be a lot of opportunity to practice your communication skills in addition to writing and conversing about philosophy. You'll have to do one presentation on a philosophical topic determined in consultation with your teaching assistant, who will be leading your recitation section. And you have to write 5,000 words throughout the term, spread over 4 papers. The first paper has to be revised and resubmitted after comments. There is also a writing advisor, at least one writing advisor, attached to this course. You have to meet with the writing advisor at least once throughout the term. Do make use of the writing advisor. They're typically extremely helpful. Grading, you should probably remind yourself of MIT's emergency COVID-19 grading policy. 10% for participation and oral presentation, 10% for quizzes, and then the rest distributed among the 4 papers, including the rewrite. Other important points. I'll be making some short videos with philosophers, mostly featuring authors in the Norton introduction. Unfortunately, I can't talk to Plato or Anselm over Zoom. Instead, I will be talking to the happily living philosophers who have contributed to the volume, and I'll post those as the course proceeds. Attendance is required in recitations. Unfortunately, there's no opportunity for discussion in lecture, which I particularly enjoy myself, but here we are. Talking about philosophy is one of the best ways of learning it. So it's extremely important that you turn up to the weekly recitation and participate fully. And some quizzes will be attached to the lectures, and others will be given in recitations. So that's the syllabus, or rather some highlights from the syllabus. You should read, as I say, the syllabus carefully. I haven't gone over every single bit of information in the syllabus. I'm relying on you to do that yourself. So now, let me tell you something about the spirit in which we're going to conduct this course.